What is up, hotties? Welcome back to another episode of Stay Hot. I'm Blaiden Kirk, joined as always by my two favorite co-hosts of all time, Matthew Sponhour and Theo Ash. We've been going through our division predictions so far for this upcoming season. We've done the AFC North, we did the NFC North, so it's only appropriate that today we do the NFC South. And you might think, for those that are new, why would that make sense? Why would that be the appropriate choice? Well, I'm a Browns fan, so that's why we did AFC North first. And also, that's a really competitive division. And then we did the NFC North because that's a really interesting division. And Theo's a Packers fan. And now we'll do another interesting division, the NFC South, because Matthew is a Panthers fan. So that's what we're talking about.
After this, we'll stop our division predictions.
Yeah, we'll never do another division prediction again
because all of our favorite teams will be covered.
No, we'll do the NFC East, so I can talk about Jalen Hurts, and then we'll do.
Oh yeah, so that's very important. We need to let you get that out.
Yeah, we'll do all of our favorite players next. So I don't even. Theo, we'll do the Dolphins, so you can talk about Tua because you love Tua.
I get to get all my Kyle Pitts takes out of there today, and then after that, I'm not talking about anybody else. This will be
Felipe Franks.
The end of it. Yeah, Felipe, of course. 2 podcasts in a row where Felipe Franks has been mentioned. We're the only ones out doing it right now.
Matt's going to be talking about Frankie Louvu today and J.C. Horn.
I might.
He might. But before we get into that, boys, Matt, Theo, how are you guys doing today?
Oh, I'm not doing too good. My laptop exploded a couple days ago. I left it out in the sun. I don't know what happened, but I was working outside and there was a glare coming off my screen and it was a little bit smudged. So I went inside to get a paper towel so I could clean the smudges off my screen. And when I returned, the computer was off and there was it wasn't a crack, but it was like a glitchy line in the screen. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
And it won't turn on.
I know about glitches.
Yeah, it's just all broken right now, and that's been a trusty piece of equipment that has brought me fame and fortune. So it's sad to see it go.
For those that aren't too in tune with the Stay Hot lore here, Matt and I have been yelling at Theo to get a new laptop for what is it, a year and a half now?
I think this was God's will.
It was running on fumes for a while there. My all 22 reviews that I put on YouTube would often take me a couple full wipe downs of the entire computer because the memory would always be getting infringed upon and just barely being viable to do anything. And of course I'd be downloading whole games and offloading videos. So 3 times every Tuesday when I make those videos, I'd have to clean out every single little nook and cranny of my computer.
So when you download an entire game, are you going to Game Pass and screen recording an entire game?
No, I have a Google extension and I don't remember the name of it, which is terrible because I'll need it for my next laptop. So I just need my...
Well, if you're logged
if
you're logged into your Google account, it should just be there, in your account.
All the extensions should be there. There's some extension that I use, and it just downloads what's on screen.
Oh,
very quickly.
That's pretty cool.
And then I can get it into QuickTime, which is just a bit of an easier interface to scrub back and forth.
Yeah.
But anyway, enough about me and my computer woes.
Woe is Theo. Matt, how are you doing?
I'm all right. I went golfing today. Got a little bit of sunburn, but outside of that, I'm fine.
How are you shooting right now?
I'm okay. I'm getting there. It's a process. I'm still very new to golf, so.
Not as good as you are on the Switch or the Wii?
No, but if I was as good as I was on the Switch, then we wouldn't be talking right now. I'd forget I knew you. I'd have $1 trillion.
So true.
You'd be in Saudi Arabia.
Dude, I would
making that
I
oil
would be
money.
by far the best golfer of all time. I mean, if I could even just putt and I had to do the driving and the irons, I'd have a chance of being the best golfer of all time. But the Switch is also slightly easier than real life golf, so it's not quite a fair 1-to-1 comparison.
Tiger's fine.
I am good though.
All right. Well, we'll have to go golfing sometime. I'll make sure to I'll make
Tiger
a trip down
Spawn Hour might be the least aesthetically pleasing name I've ever heard.
Matt, can you
Matt, don't name your
Can
kid Tiger.
you name your son Tiger? Just
I wasn't planning on it, so I think we should
cross
be all
that
good.
name off the list.
This is unfortunate. Well, if we want to get into some football, the way we've been doing these divisions is we go in reverse order by how they finished last year. So we'll start at the bottom, work our way up, and that means we're starting with the Atlanta Falcons, which, ironically enough, even though they finished last in their division, they were kind of one game back from winning it.
Yeah, when 7-7-8, correct, or 7-7-7-8?
Yeah, 7-7-7-8. So
awesome.
Yeah, and it could be
cool.
It could be a lot like that again this year. This is the battle of mid here, but I think at least the Falcons have something that we know for a fact is going to be good. And I don't know if I can say that for all the other teams here. We know that Atlanta is going to be good on the ground. Like they were already great on the ground last year. They had a really nice rushing attack. Now they're adding Bijan. I mean, I can almost guarantee that they're going to be top 5 in rushing attempts and probably top 5 in yards too. Like you could lock that in today.
Yeah, and they added Bergeron out of Syracuse, and I thought that left guard position still needed to be cleaned up on this line, and I thought that was a pretty good way to address it at the top of the second round. He was a really late scout for me, just got it in under the buzzer, and I was working off a broadcast angle for this, so this might be not the greatest scouting report of all time, but it seemed to me like he was a really mobile and powerful run defender, and he was really able to get out to the second level, latch on. He was pretty big and powerful and can move bodies once he's there. And so I'm really excited about adding that piece to this line, and Bijan as well. And yeah, Blaiden, like you said, it should be top 5 and everything, not only yards and attempts, but they should be able to be very, very efficient on that volume like they were last year.
Yeah. So that's at least the one thing I know we can expect. But the thing you're most looking forward to, Matt, is how is Ritter going to perform in year 2? We only got like 4 games out of him last year.
He's going to play good.
Is he?
He's going to play good. Yeah, I've been on Team Ritter since day one, for biased reasons, of course. I went to UC, but I think they're going to have a relatively smaller role for him. They're not going out there and asking him to change the world. They're asking him to be Ryan Tannehill, which I think is within his wheelhouse. He got a little bit better through his 4 starts. His first one was pretty rough. His last one was definitely a lot better. I remember Ritter went out there his first game and was just like alerting into stuff that wasn't there at all and just kind of throwing, where only my guy can even like touch the ball sort of thing, like just way out there. And he sort of shied away from that, or got away from that, I should say, towards his 4th start. I think he's, relatively poised, and he's got the same mobility that Mariota has that, keeps him as, a threat on the ground and helps out that rushing attack. So I think if he's even okay, and I think you upgraded the depth at receiver just a hair, and I think you've got, Pitts there and Smith there, he can turn out, average efficiency. You can have a great run game, and that offense can be pretty good.
Yeah, I'm thinking about the kind of formations they're going to use, and it's going to be, Bijan and Algier out there at the same time. It's going to be Pitts split out wide with Jonnu Smith, and is Parker Hesse still there? Who knows? It's going to be all these kinds of sniffers and players on the wings, or not on the wings, but just barely split out like as a tight end. There's going to be all kinds of different people there and all kinds of different looks. And if they were 30th, 29th, 28th in passing percentage, I would not be shocked. I think that this is going to be one of the run heaviest teams in the league. And we've seen guys like Goff and Baker and quarterbacks who maybe aren't the most talented, or Tannehill even after struggling in Miami, come into systems like this with a strong rushing game and be efficient. And I think that Ritter offers enough as a out of structure guy to, be a bit of a playmaker. And I also think that he's got kind of the mindset to create in structure as well, and go through reads and keep things on the rails. And that's what always made him more of an attractive prospect than Malik Willis to me. And even Pickett, I think, coming out of college was what he was able to do in structure, reading things out. And from what I saw last year, I don't know if I trust him to be like really good on a high volume. I don't even know if I trust him to be good on a low volume, like completely. But I am optimistic about him, and he was my favorite quarterback in the draft for a reason. So
Yeah.
I think it's going to be okay because they have one of the better offensive lines, and Pitts, Bijan, and London should be enough to make up, to make some plays through the air. So they're in a pretty good position on offense, I think, despite the quarterback situation.
Yeah, he's also a winner, you have to keep in mind. The kid just wins. All right.
He's not a kid. He's an old man,
He has a
like
kid.
a 50-year-old. He has a kid.
Okay. Well,
As we
I
noted
don't
before
give a
the
damn
draft.
how old he is. He wins. And he will win this year. I'm very high on the Falcons.
Was he
season.
undefeated at home as a Falcon or no?
I mean, how many games did he play at home? It couldn't have been more
I'm going
than
to say
3.
yes. I don't know if it's true.
Not even. Don't fact check him on this.
I don't know. I like Ritter. I do. I think he's very strong in the pocket and can play through things. And he wasn't so much of a projecty guy. And I was really mad that they didn't start him earlier last year because I didn't think they were going to give him this chance. But I think them rolling with him makes me feel a little bit better about him being at least, like the 20th best quarterback in the NFL or something around there. He's got the tools to do it. They're not asking the world of him. I really think it's going to work out. And then on the other side,
they were dead last in rushing, by the way. They were dead last in pass rate last year in neutral situations. There is no team that passed the ball less. So not a lot is on the quarterback in these situations. And their play action rate was so high with Mariota last year. And when they did throw it, it wasn't a disaster, despite the fact that Mariota couldn't hit the broadside of a barn last year. They were 15th in dropback EPA per play, which is a respectable number. And that was basically without any contributions from Kyle Pitts, who I still think is a very good player. But Mariota wasn't giving him any accurate targets, and that was the biggest problem. Like, you just didn't see a lot of catchable balls. The ones he did see, he came down with. There just weren't a lot of them. But despite this frustration and despite the fact that their best player never really got off the ground, the scheme still meant that they were an efficient passing attack when they did pass. Mm-hmm. And that gives me a lot of confidence going forward because I just think this is one of those teams that's going to be able to manufacture that, like Kevin Stefanski's been able to do with Baker and Kirk Cousins over the past, and Arthur Smith has been able to do before. I just really think that the offense is going to, when we look at the analytics, they're going to be up there.
Yeah. I'm checking it right now, Matt. Ritter is undefeated in Atlanta.
Nice.
Is it 1-0?
2-0. 2-0.
Okay.
I did not count the season.
That's tacking on to what he probably had 21 at Cincinnati. It's a pretty unbelievable streak. He was there forever. So shout out to him. The other side of the ball, defense. I guess my mindset for the Falcons is that they were really, really, really bad, like bottom 5, terrible, holes all over the place. They still are not a perfect team. They still have a lot of holes, but they added a lot of talent, and it feels like it can only go up. Right. It could only get better. It's not going to be worse than it was last year. So that's kind of my thought process there. Like the Bates contract, getting him in there, he's a very reliable, pretty rangy safety. Is it a little bit of an overpay? Possibly. Does that mean that he's not going to be good on the field this year? Absolutely not. And in terms of overpay, it's probably not even that bad. So I just think they got Dupree. They filled out the defensive line a lot. They got an ancient Calais Campbell who is still playing good football up to this point. I just think there's a lot going for them as of right now, at least defensively. So I think we're a lot headed in the right direction. They might still struggle. I don't know if they don't have a tier 1 pass rusher. Okuda coming in, I like, but I don't really trust him yet, even as a cornerback too. There's a mix of problems, but overall, serious improvement on that side of the ball.
Yeah, you're hoping you can get a bit more from Ebiketie. I think that Grady Jarrett is still pretty good. I think that when I watch Grady Jarrett, it stands out to me that he's an A-plus pass rusher from the defensive tackle spot, or maybe not an A-plus if Chris Jones is an A-plus, but then an A or an A-minus. I think He's never had anybody to take any pressure off of him. I think Calais Campbell was a winning move for them. I get that he's old, and I get why the Baltimore Ravens maybe didn't have it a priority to bring him back because he is so old and, not what it used to be. But for a team like the Falcons, I still think it's an upgrade. And last year it was him and Houston who were potentially the best pass rushers in Baltimore last year. So those two both, even despite their age, can still come in and give you some good reps and some disruptive reps. And you just need a handful of those throughout the season for it to be worth it. Hopefully Terrell can get to his level 2 years ago. Last year it was a lot worse than it was. But also he was a bit unlucky, I would say, with some of the catches guys were making at the catch point. Like in the end zone, especially Michael Thomas would come back and, it'd be good coverage and Thomas would make the catch anyway. So I'm hoping that Terrell can bounce back a little bit from his form last year because I still think that he can move around. Like, he was a first-round pick. I don't think it was a fluke that he was really good 2 years ago. I just think last year, with corner numbers, a couple bad reps can screw you up. The defense still scares me. Like, the corners still scare me. Like, the pass rush, it's by far the worst 2 years running now. And is Calais Campbell and development for Ebiketie enough to make it, like, an above-average unit? Or is it still going to be just not as horrible? I kind of lean the latter. So it's a team still with plenty of flaws.
But this whole division has flaws.
But this whole division has flaws, and they might be set up. They might be set up better to win right now because, again, last year they were a good offense, or at least a fine offense statistically, and I think they can make upgrades at quarterback. And I think that the weapons, if they're not upgraded, I think just a year with a hopefully better quarterback situation and another year for London and Pitts and Bijan now. Like, I think it could be the best offense in this division I don't think that's real tough to project. And then if the defense can just hold on, I don't know though. The defense still could sabotage them and I could still see them being at the bottom. Like, it's better than it was, but the Eagles had more sacks last year than the Falcons the last two. It's been 2 years in a row that they've been absolutely terrible in this area. So
they're due. This bodes well for them.
They are due. It's been
third
a long
time's the
time.
charm.
I also think a team that's so good at running can especially late in games, can control the clock a little bit more, and that can take some pressure off of the defense in some situations. I'm not saying I'm relying on that greatly, but it definitely does matter. I just think if their defense can approach, competent, then the offense is going to be okay. I think it's going to be pretty interesting, and I like what Arthur Smith does there. So there's a lot of positives.
And also, if they're playing enough bad offenses, they can probably just get by with just being a better offense than their opponent.
Right. If their defense can be better than the offenses in their division, which is not totally difficult, then they can win, 4 or 5 games in the division and have a leg up. Yeah, I think that they're going to be up there. I think that they're going to compete just like they did last year. And I think they overcame their talent level last year to win 7. And I think right now they've got the talent of about a 7-win team. So could they win 9, 10 with the same offensive system?
I don't see why not.
I don't see why not.
I think they win the division. They're my number one. It's like, it's so close. Like, it's so tough, but like, I think just based on like knowing that the run game is going to be good and being able to project that like London and Pitts and like they added Mac Holland to like if he's your 3rd receiving option or even 4th if you're counting Bijan in there, like that offense just bodes to be so much better. I think just like right away than every other offense in this division.
I don't know if I think the Saints could be up there in terms of offenses in this division. I do think that New Orleans with Carr and Olave and Michael Thomas, and I think the offensive line.
Do you think Carr is good?
No, but I think that.
Do you think Michael Thomas will play the full season? This is
Michael Thomas has played. Michael Thomas
has
played 10 games in the past 3 years.
If we want to get into the Saints, because they are next,
They are next. Well, where do you guys have the Falcons finishing?
I have the Falcons at 1.
Okay.
I do. I think it's a super tight division, and I think the Falcons' offense is going to end up pushing them over the edge at like 9 wins or something, and it'll be like 9, 8, 7, blah, blah, blah. I don't feel strongly about it, but I'll roll with the Falcons.
I've got them at number 2 just because the defense was so bad, and they drafted Bijan and not, a first-round defender or anything like that.
Sure.
So, and the free agents additions, like Jesse Bates was a big splash, but the front seven still scares me.
Well, talking about front sevens that scare you, the New Orleans Saints, man, it's bad, dude. And I here's the thing. I know their defense was good last year, but they lost a lot of starters, a lot of snaps from that defense. And I don't think they replaced them all that well, at least in the immediate future. I mean, you've got their best players are all incredibly old. You got Cam Jordan, who did not have a good year last year, and
his
now probably has what I'd consider to be less help beside him. Demario Davis, still a very good player, but I mean, is he 35
Not as agile.
now?
Yeah, not as agile as he used to be. Not as good as in the open field. He used to be such a unicorn.
God.
He's still good. He's still a very good player, but he's
still forever. One of the rare linebackers who will actually blow an alignment up at the point of attack. He brings a physicality and obviously a leadership and a toughness element that is very desirable from your Mike linebacker, and he's still got good instincts in coverage. I'm still a Demario Davis fan, and I was still impressed when you watched him, although he's maybe more susceptible to getting burned in space than he used to be.
And I mean, Tyrann Mathieu is still a good player, but getting up there. But a lot of these positions are filled by street dudes at this point. Their entire defensive line basically got replaced, and I don't think it's necessarily upgraded. And I don't think their run defense was all that special last year. So I can only project that to get worse. I mean, I know they got Rasee, but is he going to come in and just be the guy immediately? He's billed as more of a project. I don't trust their depth at linebacker either. I think Pete Warner is all right, but Zach Braun has basically not been a huge factor for them, it seems like, up until this point. Now he's probably slotted as a starter now. It's just I don't trust their defense a whole ton, and I think that's what kept them competitive last year. And I don't think Derek Carr is changing their offense, and that's why I'm not high on them, I guess.
I think when it comes to Derek Carr, well, last year Andy Dalton played well, which is the harsh reality of the situation. From week 4 on, their passing attack was top half of the league in a lot of metrics, top 10 in the league in a lot of metrics. Andy Dalton, I think, in completion percentage, they were up there. In EPA, they were, I think, 13th or something like that. And yes, you may say going from Andy Dalton to Derek Carr is a huge upgrade, but I just don't think it's any guarantee that Derek Carr gives you better results than what Dalton got last year. And that's a bit of a problem for me. I think that Derek Carr is a fine, average, whatever starter. He's fine. But his footwork is still a mess and will always be a mess because he's a veteran at this point. His feet point the wrong way. He misses throws. He's toesy. It's I just don't know what he's doing a lot of the time still. He's frustrating as a creator in that he really won't do it. Sometimes he'll take a big risk, but in other games, those risks aren't there, or sometimes he'll take them when he shouldn't have to. So he's got enough natural talent, and he's got accuracy, and when his feet are right, or not even when his feet are right, it's that he's so used to throwing it within his feet are wrong that he's okay at this point. But I think that he can maybe hold you steady. And I don't know, I thought Michael Thomas looked pretty good when he was healthy last year. If he could just stay healthy. I know that it's such a tall order.
It's 3 years. It's been 3 years we've seen 10 games of Michael Thomas.
But he just has such a good feel for the game, and underneath he catches everything, and he's just open. And Olave, I really think, can be a special wide receiver. Great. We spend so much time about talking about Garrett Wilson that we kind of leave Olave, the other Ohio State receiver, out in the cold a little bit. But man, he was really, really smooth last year, separated effortlessly, had really good hands and body control. Like it was all there for him, and the speed to take the top off the defense alongside all of this. So if you were to tell me in a couple years, like he was this immaculate route runner who is dominating in the league the way like Devontae Adams does or Chad Ochocinco did in the past, like I think he can kind of be that smooth of a route runner, and he's got the hands and the speed to go along with it. Mm-hmm. So you've got a potential top wide receiver in the league right there. You've got perhaps Michael Thomas. Shaheed was something nice. Carr can be fine. And maybe he can play better than Dalton did. Like, who knows? He's played better than Dalton in the past. So
how are you feeling about this offensive line?
As a pass protecting unit, I'm feeling better than as a run protecting unit. Penning will be a big key.
Yeah.
Because I feel like Kamara just has had nowhere to go. I don't think that he's a good pass protector, but I think he's a good run blocker. So, and that honestly might be a trade-off that you're willing to make after 2 years of Kamara just having nowhere to go if you're the Saints. I just feel like he's gotten swallowed up behind the line so much that having a guy like Penning out there could be beneficial to them. Kamara is not the most decisive runner. He will chop his feet behind the line. He'll try to pick through holes and use his vision more than just, trusting what he sees and going. And it's behind that offensive line. It just has been totally inefficient these last 2 years. And I'm hoping that can be a little bit better, but I'm worried that it won't be. And then just a little bit too much will be on Carr.
This is the problem I have with the Saints. There's just too much.
I think the case is making itself as to why I don't have him picked that high.
Well, I still like the passing offense because it was all right last year, and I like Olave, and I like Michael Thomas, and I like Shaheed, and I like Kamara as a receiver still. I think that his balance is still real nice. I hope with more time, like last year, it just seemed so disjointed. It seemed like they didn't really have a vision forward, and I'm just hoping those things get a little bit smoothed out last year. And I do still like the defense, and specifically the secondary. I think the secondary can mask a lot of their problems. Last year, they allowed explosive plays at an extremely low rate, one of the lowest of the last decade, actually. I think Alontae Taylor looked great for a rookie last year. Marshawn Lattimore is still, he's not a Darrelle Revis or anything out there, but he's someone who's capable of falling around the best guys and doing a decent job on them. So I think they've got a really good corner duo. They're not going to allow a lot of explosive plays. And yes, they lost people in the front seven, but who did they lose that wasn't easily replaceable? Like Shai Tuttle and Onyemata, these are guys, but they kind of fell off last year. And it's not unreasonable to believe that you can get that level of play. Especially when they're a defensive staff that's been so good at being consistently top 10, basically since they've arrived back in New Orleans. So it's I don't know. It's when you look at the duos across the league, it's what passing offense do you trust more than Carr, Olave, and Michael Thomas in this division?
Well, I don't trust Michael Thomas to be on the field. So
okay, so who do you trust more?
Well, let's. I think I can agree with you in the sense of they probably have the best passing offense on paper, but it's still not great. There's still multiple question marks. Is Carr going to be all that great? Is Michael Thomas going to stay healthy? I question whether Kamara still has it anymore. He's not looked himself.
Yeah.
He's a running back turning 28. I think their offensive line right now is not in great shape. I think their defensive line is among the worst in the league at this point. I think overall their front seven is not that great, and Demario Davis, who's their key linebacker, is getting incredibly old, where it's becoming kind of amazing that he's still playing at this level. And I think their secondary is pretty good. I think outside of receiver and safety, they don't have one position where I'm I love what they've got there. And even receiver is questionable, but I'll give you. I think Michael Thomas is just due to play more games than he has been. It can't be any worse. And he is still a baller. I'll 100% give you that. I believe that 100%. I just think there's a lot of questions. And I think
I agree. It's just the division is bad because with the Falcons, I could say, well, they're going to be a good running team and they're going to be an efficient passing team, but they're going to be passing less than everybody else. So as a whole, is the offense going to be as explosive as the Saints offense if Carr is hitting Olave down the field consistently, which I do think can happen. And I think that the Falcons front seven is just as bad as any front seven that's around the league, even though they've made upgrades. I mean, they're starting from a historically low point. I mean, they've sacked the quarterback, like 20 times over the past 2 years? It's probably between like 20 and 30, honestly. So it's just coming from such a low point that I don't think that gets too much better. And I think that although it's nice to have Bates over top, it's not solving all their problems there. And I just don't know if they have the offense that's built to get in shootouts.
That's not fair. That's not fair. You can't sit here and tell me, oh, well, the Falcons' defensive line, their pass rush. Dude, the Saints have that exact same problem. Unless you judge from the lens of last year. But they have a secondary. I could argue that the Falcons are not that far off from where the Saints are. I don't think
in terms of talent, but they're the Falcons and the Saints are the Saints, and it's like the Saints last year. And
that's why you would pick the Saints. And I have the Saints at 2, kind of for that reason, because I think their defense overachieved because of coaching last year.
Right.
And I think they'll do it again. But I have a really, really hard time picking them to win the division exclusively because of that, because they didn't do it last year.
Yeah, that's true.
They didn't win it last year. I mean, and it was razor close, but when it came down to it, man, like they lost to the Sam Darnold Panthers. That team stunk. They should have beaten us, and they didn't. So yeah. I have the Saints at 2. I definitely get it. I think Olave and Michael Thomas, deserve all the credit in the world. You can say those guys are real good and a big deal. But man, it's like even. Can Olave stay healthy? He wasn't super healthy last year. If he goes down, then it's like, oh my God.
He was unhealthy because he kept getting rocked though. And it's like, I don't know.
I mean, that's why Tua wasn't healthy either. And we're all like, well, what if Tua, like, you got to be worried about him.
It's still early to call Olave injury prone. They have a lot of Buckeyes. You got to respect that.
That's really why Matt has them at 2. He's like, I'd put.
I just Ramczyk and Lattimore and all that.
It's pretty much only Carr. Warner. I don't think Carr is like changing the world. I think that's what you have to buy into for the Saints being significantly better. Outside of that, you're running it back with the same guys, and it's like. I don't want to sit here and be like, DeMario Davis will fall off or so-and-so will fall off. But eventually, like, DeMario Davis isn't going to play till he's 100, you know? It's like it can only go one way with a lot of their key players, and that's what concerns me. It can only go one way with, Matthew or Davis or Kamara or Cameron Jordan, which it already has to some extent. So...
Yeah, and it feels like coordinators are kind of running the team and not a head coach. Like I do feel like Dennis Allen kind of inherited a bad situation where Breeze retired without a real backup plan. And, they've been in cap hell all these years and like the prices finally come to pay. And then it's like the head coach who's in charge at the time because your old head coach retired because he couldn't see a way out of it. He's like, I don't want to coach this team. I'll coach the Broncos, sure. If he's willing to coach the Broncos and not the Saints team,
I should say something.
I guess that maybe it tells you something about the Saints team. But it does kind of feel like, Dennis Allen is maybe more of a defensive coordinator than a head coach, considering how his stint went before in Las Vegas, or I guess Oakland at the time, and his first year as the Saints head coach, because it really was rough to watch at points. And they had Jarvis Landry returning punts, and I was like, I don't know about this. And Jameis Winston playing through injuries that were like clearly bothering him. And I don't know about Dennis Allen as a head coach, I've got to say. And I do like Arthur Smith more. It's just, I don't know. There's organization tax. There really is. And it's like after Brady left, Belichick was still able to make the playoffs with Mac Jones. They got blown out, but there is something to it, I think.
Well,
I think
organization tax be damned. These two teams won the same number of games last year, and I know the Falcons got better. I don't really know if the Saints did.
Yeah, I guess maybe not, but I do think that.
And I would actually, as somebody who has been like higher than I should have been on the Saints for several years, what have they done recently to earn the organization tax?
Be really good in 2020. I guess.
It's 2023, it's like this is
Hey,
last
we
stop
still
for,
ride that Lamar MVP to this day. So
yeah,
Well,
it's kind
yeah,
of
Lamar's been good since then,
that's
though.
true.
I don't
That's
know.
true.
I think the defensive success last year and the fact that they were not just a terrible unit and they were able to, be competitive on that side of the ball, I think kind of gives me some hope, I guess.
I get the case. It's like, okay, the defense will be good anyway, and who is on it just entirely like doesn't matter because they still have most of the main key players, and everybody who they lost is like a non-factor, and none of the old guys will get worse, and they'll still be like a top 10 unit. And then offensively, the receivers can only be healthier, the offensive line can only be better, Kamara can really only be more efficient, and hopefully Derek Carr is like
Regression
fine.
to the mean, basically.
And like I said,
yeah.
in the top of the Saints section, their passing numbers were actually not that bad last year, even though they were dealing with Andy Dalton. And that also, I think, gives them some organizational credibility, is because I would rather have Derek Carr than Andy Dalton. And Andy Dalton has flamed out plenty of places between his time as the starter in Cincinnati and his stint with the Saints. And the stint with the Saints is the most successful place that he's been. So that gives me some hope that they have the coaching staff that can lift guys up a little bit above where their actual talent level is and overperform versus what they should be on paper. Because if you told me at the beginning of the season it was going to be, Andy Dalton the whole way for the Saints and Michael Thomas was going to get hurt week 4 or week 3 or whenever it was, I'd be like, yeah, man, this passing offense is going to be, garbage. And it really wasn't. And it didn't transfer to wins, but I think some of their underlying metrics were impressive based on the talent that they had. And that's kind of what gives me some faith in the Saints over like a team like the Falcons, although I do like Arthur Smith, and I think
Although
that he
the
also
Falcons are kind of the same. The same
well, they're
thing.
my 1 and 2. They're kind of my 1 and 2. And,
yeah,
and
I've got them 1 and 2. I've just got them in a different
I have
order.
the Saints at 3, sadly.
Okay.
Ooh.
That's
okay.
Yeah. I mean, we're having a mid off here. This is
yeah, it's like, dude, they're not.
This is like Drew Brees
Falcons
retired.
getting 9 wins. Panthers
Drew
getting
Brees
8.
and Matt Ryan retired, and now it's like Succession, where we're like fighting over which Roy kid runs the company. It's not. It's not really the most serious. It's not the most serious people, is basically what I'm saying. It's not a good succession plan for what it was in the Cam, Matt Ryan, Drew Brees, and now it's not so much that level of quarterback play.
The Panthers, if we want to move on to them, they do have maybe they do have a bright succession plan in place.
Yeah,
they do,
Young.
just not this year.
I don't think he'll be like, the expectation for Bryce Young cannot be super high when you don't have like a true wide receiver 1, and like the offensive line's good, but when it's like it's Terrace Marshall, DJ Chark, and Adam Thielen, and who's the guy they drafted, Mingo, it's like those guys are fine. Thielen stinks at this point. Thielen is no.
That was not an inspiring signing.
But
I mean,
I think their defense is actually pretty. Their defense, I think, might be.
It's not.
No,
Nope.
no.
Nope.
Oh no. What's wrong? Is it not an upgrade from where it was last year?
Not particularly. What big upgrade happened?
I mean, they got Bell, and they're gonna have Horn back.
They did get Von Bell
last year.
Horn did play.
Yeah.
Their defense is going to be
the big
okay.
upgrade.
It's probably going to be around league average. And they've got and from a building point, from a long-term perspective, I like the Panthers because they have J.C. Horn. What they don't have is a cornerback too at all. They do have some okay safeties who will be solid.
Dante Jackson.
They do have a Brian.
He does not like Dante Jackson.
No, Dante Jackson is not good.
Well documented.
Dante Jackson is not good, and they just keep signing him. It's nonsense, man. He stinks. He's rangy. I wish we could play him at like safety or something, but it's just. Yeah. Or like I was saying though, they have Brian Burns. Yeah, they do not have a second edge rusher at all. I mean, they're drafting guys in the 4th round trying to fit their scheme. They have Derek Brown. They don't have anybody else on the defensive line. The guys that they signed this offseason is to like fill roles that they entirely did not have otherwise. So Shy Tuttle, this is not moving me. It's stuff like that. I like their linebackers okay. I like Shaq Thompson and then Luvu. They're kind of pretty cool. I'm a fan of both of them. But overall, their defense, there's no reason to believe that their defense projects to be crazy. And really, a lot of even the star players they have are like all like kind of second tier in their respective groups. Like Derek Brown is kind of like a tier 2 defensive tackle. He's really good. Burns is like a really good edge rusher, but he's not quite like Bosa or whoever else you want to say. Garrett, that type of stuff. Horn is really good, but he's not a tier 1 corner.
I thought he was better than Surtain, though.
I'm just sick of hearing about Surtain. Surtain's a tier 5 corner as far as I'm concerned.
I'm sure that you loved the top 10 corner list dialogue that came out yesterday with all the Surtain.
Sauce won, by the way, pretty easily.
Wait, what was the top 10 list? Who posted it, and what was?
ESPN pulled the executives and came up with the top 10s at each positions, which is always pretty interesting. And Surtain, was he number 2 behind Sauce Gardner, or was he number 1 in the league?
All I know,
I think it was Surtain was voted number 1. Surtain was voted number 1.
Respect.
No, and he's not better than Sauce at all.
I think it went Surtain, Sauce, Ramsey, Jair Alexander, which you place Jair Alexander in the top 5, you get it. I didn't really have a problem with it, to be completely honest.
That's a fine top 4.
Anyway,
yes. Anyway,
the Panthers' defense is probably around league average, and again, I think
that's where it was last year.
Direction. Adding Von Bell, as much as I like him, is not really changing the world, and we'll see how their new defense looks, and maybe it's like crazy, and they just do a great job with what they've got. But I'm not going to project that. And then offensively, they have a rookie quarterback and bad weapons. Now, it's hypothetical that maybe their weapons could be okay. Maybe Terrace Marshall Jr. breaks out. Maybe Mingo is good. But what other team is looking at their receiver room like that? And I like Terrace Marshall. Like nobody else, man, outside of like some really bad teams. This is a bottom 5 receiver group until somebody actually steps up and proves it. And even if they do, it's probably still not top half. Their offensive line is good, but they've had several major injuries, and it's not completely filled out or perfect, and it's kind of shallow.
Yeah.
And Okongwu was, we'll see. He still needs some work, and Moten is good, but not great. It's like not a perfect offensive line, and I like what Reich is doing. I like the way the offense is headed. I like Bryce Young. I think he will be good. I think the defense has the major pieces in place. Whether or not it all comes together this year, I don't know. So I have them at 3.
Yeah. I think that's
you can
fair.
talk yourself.
I think I'm more hopeful for what we'll get year 1 out of this offense, and Von Bell is a pretty big improvement over Jeremy Chin. So
well, they're not replacing each other.
Are they not? Or is it?
No,
or is Chin going to move into the box more? Is that the?
Well, first of all, I think Chin is better than Von Bell, and
Really?
second of all, second of all, I would say that Von Bell is probably going to be more around the box, maybe that kind of big nickel
And have
safety
Chin
down in
play
that area, and
up
then
top?
I think we're going to have single high. I think you want both Chin and Bell in the box, and with single high coverage is what I think I would do.
So what are we? Is this like a 4?
So we're looking at something No, we're looking at something just like, imagine single high coverage. You've got a safety down in the box.
Yeah.
And instead of a nickel corner, you've got Chin. I think if I were to do something like this, it would be kind of like a Kyle Hamilton situation with the Ravens, where you've got him just kind of being that slot and really making plays against the run. And he's a big safety who's able to take on guys out on the perimeter, blockers who are, fitting him. And, he's got the size and strength to do that, which a corner may not have. And also just enough of an athlete to hold up with these underneath coverages and carry guys down the sideline at times. Like, I think that's what it's going to look like more than Bell is a 1-for-1 replacement over Jeremy Chin. I think you want Jeremy Chin on the field. I think that maybe not the most consistent guy, but he's a splash play maker, and so is Luvu. Like, these guys can give you a handful of big game tilting plays per season that can show up on the win and loss column.
If they're doing stuff like the Ravens are doing, that would be an exciting defense.
It would be. That's how I would use it, and then have Woods over top is probably what I would be looking at. Because, like, who is their third corner? You know, like, I'd probably rather have one of these two safeties down there than one of the corners. It's not like they've got a guy to really naturally step into that area.
Yeah, I don't know who their third corner would be if their second corner's Jackson. So
it's Henderson.
Yeah, who's
so
not good.
Yeah,
I think projecting this offense to be good is really, really going out on a limb. I mean, what is the path to that? Like Bryce Young being a top half quarterback right away, because it would take that for the passing offense to be about average, considering how bad the weapons are. And again, like, I liked the run game last year, but we'll see if that really carries over. It was just a hot streak from a team that kind of
Miles Sanders is good. I like Miles Sanders.
That makes no difference to me. Unfortunately, Miles Sanders is a whatever. In fact, I didn't like that signing. They signed him for too long.
So you bro hates Miles Sanders. This is insane.
It's
4
fine.
years. 4 years is a lot when, like, Saquon Barkley can't even get a deal, you know, or Josh Jacobs
Right.
can't even get a deal, and it's like you're signing. Like, why'd you need to sign Miles Sanders for 4 years then if these guys can't even get 2 years, you know? So I see what you're saying there. What do you expect the offense to look like if you were to put it, you know, what do you think it'll look like when you watch them? Where do you think they'll end in statistical rankings? Blaiden, you said that you're confident in the offense. Like, just how confident are you?
I think top half of the league would be like right around where I would like. Not quite as good as Atlanta.
Top half by how much?
I don't think they're quite as good as Atlanta offensively. But if they were like slightly above average, like 15th.
Okay.
Or 15th, 16th, something around there.
I think that's like
maybe.
Maybe I have to like think about some of the other offenses. That's just like off the top of my head where I would project.
Here's I think what the offense is it's going to be Philadelphia, because, you know, look at where Frank Reich comes from, Philadelphia. Then who got signed out from under him? It was Sirianni, and he signed Miles Sanders from that offense. You pick up Bryce Young, who played at Bama, which has all these kind of RPOs, and it's kind of a similar structure. So it's like, imagine the Eagles offense, but instead of the Eagles offensive line, it's the Panthers offensive line. And instead of Jalen Hurts, it's rookie Bryce Young. And instead of A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith, it's Adam Thielen and Terrace Marshall. You know, it's just like a really, really discount version. And I think Bryce Young is just
better
so
not
naturally...
be Adam Thielen is the second option.
Well, it's gonna be. I mean, it's gonna be, right? Like, he's
Mingo,
there.
Mingo will be playing. Like,
Mingo's gonna be a weirdo. Mingo's gonna be lining up at fullback, and he's going to be a wrinkle. And I think that that's going to be a good wrinkle. I think that we saw that with Skoranek last year, that it's good to have someone who can block a little bit and go out and receive. Like, I like him in that role as like a pseudo tight end, fullback, slot receiver, kind of an everything guy. I like him for that, and I think he's going to be efficient in that role, but it's not going to be someone you can really lean on. Bryce Young is, as a quarterback, is so creative, and his placement is so good, and he's super smart with great intangibles. So I think he can make a pretty good Jalen Hurts. But Jalen Hurts wasn't good until A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith
Jalen Hurts
really
also
showed up.
wasn't nearly as good of a passer away as Bryce Young is.
Yeah, that's definitely true. But
maybe
I think the rest of the
the
rest of the passing offense needs to get closer to A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith and Landon Dickerson and Jason Kelce.
That's if you want to be
I don't know.
That's to be like a top 3 offense. Like,
right.
They're like the best offense. They're like the most dynamic offense in football. So like,
Yeah, 15th is maybe out of the question. I just think that it's going to be
They were 20th
average.
in points last year, 29th in yards, and 8th in turnovers. So
I like Derek Brown a lot. I like the linebackers. I like Horn, but he hasn't proved anything yet to me. This is how I feel about Horn. I always see like PFF say he's graded so highly and people freak out about him. But to me, he just hasn't quite proved it yet. And I think he could prove it if he got the chance. It's just the rest of the secondary is so bad. They can't really man up and play like that. So it's like, yes, I know that he can play off and rally and tackle things in front of him, but like I want to see him go toe to toe with top receivers and win, and that is just something like the defense hasn't allowed him to do. So I don't know. It was an average defense last year. I don't think Bryce Young is quite special enough to elevate this supporting cast to a really high level yet. Although I do think that he can look good. Like I think that Bryce Young is good. And I think it's just going to be a mid team, which I think about all these teams, but I put him at third just because of the rookie factor.
I agree.
So that means we all have the Bucs at last in this division. Now we've said this is a mid off. Are we thinking the Bucs are mid, or do we think they're bad?
I think they're mid.
Okay.
I think they're okay. Their defense is still going to be good. That's the thing that people are forgetting is that I think their defense is actually pretty good. And while I think Baker has a very real chance to be like the worst starting quarterback, I still think there's more good aspects to their team than a lot of other teams, even in this division. People compare them to like the Cardinals. Dude, they aren't the Cardinals. Let's take a step back, man. They aren't the Cardinals, dude. You know, they still have like a very good edge rusher. They still have a very good defensive tackle. They still have, their linebackers are still good. They've got guys in the secondary for sure. They've got serious offensive linemen. They've got serious weapons. I think there's a real chance that their run game improves just from getting guys back and the investments they've made in the offensive line. I think that even if they had like Jacoby Brissett, I think we'd be thinking about this team entirely differently.
Well, I mean, Baker Mayfield, I've been building out like the QB like ranking chart, and Baker Mayfield is dead last in efficiency across all metrics. So, we'd be talking about
it's hard to
differently.
fathom how bad he was for the Panthers last year.
So to like compare Brissett to Baker, I mean, it's literally night and day. It's like mid-tier starter versus literally like.
So you
think
Zach the Buccaneers are going to be awful?
I think they were mid last year with Tom Brady, who was still playing at a pretty good level. To go from that to like, imagine if they had Zach Wilson. Like, look at what the Jets were with Zach. I guess the Jets were pretty good. Maybe that's the baseline we should be looking at is how the Jets were. I
think people, and I do this too, but I think it's easy to get a little bit too in the vacuum of like, well, this is what they were like last year, and then this change happened, so this is what they're going to be like this year. There's too many moving parts to draw one-to-one comparisons like that. Like, there's a whole new offensive coordinator. I think just saying it's like last year but with no Brady is simplifying it a little bit too much.
I think it's going to be pretty bad on offense. I think Baker and Trask are both terrible. I think they should both be backups, and even then they couldn't really come in and operate an offense at a high level. I just think I think he sucks. Like, I watched the Panthers games last year. I mean, he was freaking out. He was running all around. He was missing throws by a country mile. It was terrible. I mean, it was all of his bad traits and none of his good stuff. So I just have, and I've never been high on Baker. And I just think at this point in his career, there's just no it seems like he gets, worse at every stop, or his career is just pointed straight down. And Trask, I never liked coming out of Florida. That felt like a Hackenberg pick when it happened. And he was behind Blaine Gabbert on the depth chart last year. They would put in Blaine Gabbert over Trask. So, now he's going to be your starter? You didn't trust him to take over in garbage time last year. I mean, how bad do you have to be that they don't want to get a look at you in garbage time? Like, you're either going to 100% lose or win, and they're throwing Gabbert in there. And it's like, are you hiding Trask because he's so good, or is he just that much of a disaster and you don't want to let anybody know that?
I think it's weapon.
I don't think he's a secret weapon. I just don't buy that. I think that he's a secret disaster. But why would you just take Baker then? It doesn't make any sense to me why what their quarter is what it is. And they were the worst running team last year. And I just don't know what gets better there. Cody Mauch out of NDSU could be a pretty special run blocker. I will give him that out of NDSU, but he's a rookie. They still got Luka Decky starting, who is just an absolute disaster last year. I don't know. I think that Mike Evans and Godwin aren't what they used to be, and I think the insane volume of passing from Tom Brady has not inflated their statistics, but let them remain a little bit more steady than they're going to be next year, and their reputation to maintain a little bit more than they would have if the quarterback situation was really terrible. And I just don't think that they're enough at this point in their careers to like save Baker Mayfield. So I think it's going to be even though they got Wirfs, even though they have Evans, even though they have Jensen, I just don't trust.
Back.
Yeah, who they're getting back. That's true. I don't trust Bowles. I don't trust Baker. I don't trust their running game after it was just so awful last year. I don't know. I think it was a really frustrating time. And I think going from Brady to Baker is going to be pretty stark because at least Brady knew what to do. His deep ball was pretty atrocious last year, and you could tell that he was kind of losing it a little bit. But
right.
I mean, I think it was still legions better than Baker and Kyle Trask. And the secondary, it's got some names, definitely. Carlton Davis, Jamel Dean, Antoine Winfield Jr., Ryan Neal. If everyone stays healthy, it should be okay. They have the worst secondary depth in the entire league, and you're always going to need to rely a little bit on that over the course of the season. And if they get hit with any injuries in the secondary, I mean, you're turning to Zion McCullum and Dee Delaney and Christian Eziad. I mean, they only had like a couple guys under contract before the draft. It was really, really thin in the fact that they literally had no one. So they've just been filling it out with, I mean, nobodies. And I don't know. I'm just not really high on either unit. I mean, we all have them fourth. So
yeah,
fourth
I mean,
in a bad division, I think just is bad in general.
Right.
But I don't think they have any chance to win a bad division.
But I mean, fourth in this division last year was 7-10. But that
I don't think they're going 7-10. Maybe 7-10. I don't want to write that off. That's not the hardest thing to achieve, I suppose. But I don't think they have any chance to win a bad division. So it's like, to me, that just makes you bad. Like, really bad.
They're probably not winning, like, their close games because you have Baker in at quarterback. The front seven's really the only thing that, like, really gets you excited.
Yeah.
I just don't think they're, like, the worst team in the league is all.
No.
Yeah, they've got some good players. They do.
They're not Arizona. They're not the Rams, and even the Rams have good players.
I think if their run game can rebound a little bit, which I think it will. New guy in there.
With Jensen and Mauch, yeah, run behind them. That'll be better than
different
anyone
guys.
Behind, yes.
You still have some big receivers, so it's not like Baker's out there all by himself like he was, at least, you know, for some of the other games he was playing last year.
It was really wild to watch him last year playing with like Robbie Anderson and Shi Smith as like starters. Like, come on, guys. Those are like the two worst receivers.
So
respect Robbie Anderson.
No. Robbie Anderson was terrible last year, especially
is he even on
Arizona.
a team?
He's in Miami.
Is he really?
Maybe
true. Yeah.
Mike McDaniel can work some magic and get him wide open over the middle, and Tua can look everybody off and get him open. But I mean, especially in Arizona last year, it was pretty bad, which maybe is credit to the Panthers because as bad as their weapons are this year, I mean, it was like week 1 last year and they were throwing Robbie Anderson and Shi Smith out there and like Tommy Tremble. And it's like, geez.
Actually, respect Tommy Tremble, man. Respect Tommy Tremble.
Even though they don't have DJ Moore, it might be better than that. So maybe that's a point for the Panthers. And maybe I was a bit too low on them. But
yeah, maybe.
I was
I've got
trying
it
to look up
Saints,
Robbie
Falcons.
Anderson's stats here on Pro Football Reference.
Stats don't even do it justice. You have to watch.
This
Well,
is
maybe
just
the
so
stats are
weird.
really bad.
I'm like looking up his name and nothing's popping up.
Chosen Anderson.
Yeah,
he goes by Chosen now.
He changed his name, but like it changed on like the Pro Football Reference. So I was like, I just like did not see that. And
I forgot he's going by Chosen now. I shouldn't have been calling him Robbie. I gotta
Robbie Chosen, formerly Robert Steven Anderson. So is he going by Robbie Chosen or Chosen Anderson?
Just Chosen. And Chosen Anderson was terrible last year. That's what I should have said. I don't want to insult him.
I just told you to respect him, and you said no. Like, what?
I respect the name change. If someone changes, if you want to go by a different name, I gotta call you by the name. So Chosen Anderson, but he was terrible last year.
He caught 45.5% of his passes for 282 yards and 1 touchdown.
Yeah, 45.5, and he was starting the whole year basically. I mean, once he got to Arizona, it's not like they had a ton of receivers better than him at that point. Yeah, it was hilariously bad. So Chark and Thielen are better than Smith and Anderson. So.
Amen.
Thielen's pretty bad, but
Thielen kind of fell off last year, unfortunately. I was at one of Thielen's first games. I was at the Minnesota game in the preseason, and he was undrafted out of Mankato State, and we were sitting right behind his family, and he like blocked a punt or something, and they all went crazy. And he had a pretty good game in the preseason, and I just remember Thielen having that little preseason breakout, and like no one cared who he was, and his family was sitting right by us, and so I don't know. I've always kind of had a respect for Thielen because of that connection.
I've always rooted for Adam.
Sadly,
Thielen. There was peak Adam Thielen caught everything.
Peak Adam Thielen was a dog.
He caught everything, man.
But they had to trade for Hawkinson for a reason, and it was because Thielen wasn't good enough to be the number 2 on a team anymore, and they needed something better. And
it's his time has passed. But I think we have. Do we have a mailbag today? I think so.
We do.
We do have a mailbag. I almost forgot about the mailbag. Let's answer these mailbag questions. First one. These are from Twitter, by the way. So if you want to be involved in the mailbag, make sure you follow us on Twitter @StayHotPod so you can be more involved in the show. This first one is from our good friend Nico. Elite Takes.
Oh.
Which quarterback head coach duo has the most potential besides Reed and Mahomes, and why is it Trevor and Doug Peterson?
Well, it's Trevor and Doug Peterson because Doug Peterson is a Super Bowl winning head coach with Nick Foles, and Trevor Lawrence is the first overall pick. You know, like it's pretty tantalizing. You've got a guy who I think really effectively utilized and turned around a garbage franchise basically since their inception, except for a handful of years. And I really liked what he did. It was a creative run game. He utilized, winebacks and all sorts of things. Evan Ingram came in and he immediately found a spot for Ingram and let him be his best. Christian Kirk, he came in and let him be his best. I'll always remember the play call where he got him matched up one-on-one with Karlaftis and they scored in the playoffs. Like, he's just clever. I'm not the best at articulating why coaches are good at this point, honestly, and it's something hopefully I can get better at as time goes on. But, I mean, you just know that Peterson is a high-level guy, and Trevor Lawrence, he's, the best prospect in a long time.
He's a high-level guy.
So, yeah, it's them. I don't know if there's any under the radar ones, but, yeah, as far as potential goes, it's a pretty good match. And
I'm trying to think if there's...
Herbert and Kellen Moore has a lot of potential. Kellen Moore is, like him or not, he's directed top 5 scoring offenses basically every single year he's been a coordinator, and he's very young. And I think Herbert's even better than Dak is. So... I know some people don't like Kellen Moore, and a lot of people don't like Herbert either. I think he's overrated, but the two of them could combine for some pretty good results next season. And I don't know. It's basically all the names you'd expect. McDaniels and Tua obviously lit the league on fire last year. Like, as far as underrated ones, Jake Haener is. We'll keep it to the NFC South. Haener.
Relax.
I think we could see Haener this year. I don't know.
It's not unreasonable.
He was a 5th-round pick though. The league kind of rejected
His
his
rookie pictures.
He's got Riz, man. He's got
the
charisma.
look, man. He's got the look.
He's main character energy. He's gonna come in at Fresno State. He worked with I can't remember the name of the coach, but he sent a lot of guys to the league, including Aaron Rodgers, Jeff Tedford. And he was running an offense where he dropped back 5 steps, read things out, and throw it down the field. Haener is going to get to the league, and it's going to be like play action and RPOs and like the Shanahan stuff where it's just, drags over the middle or whatever and, fakes off of elaborate run game fakes. And he's going to be like, this is easy. I was playing like Peyton Manning at Fresno State.
I remember
I really think
I was
so.
I was watching a game. I think it was in 2021, and I was
You're
like at
watching
the
Oregon
airport.
game. Yeah.
I was like this. And I was like, I think I was watching one of Fresno State's receivers, and I was like, well, that's a pretty bad drop. But man, that was a crazy throw by who's that quarterback out there?
Yeah.
And it was Jake Haener.
I could see Haener being a character. We'll see, though, because he went so late in the draft. But I really thought he deserved to go higher. I really did, even though he's undersized. And if he's not a good quarterback, he'll be like one of those backups that's like a long-term guy who becomes like a quarterback's coach or an offensive coordinator immediately after his career. He just seems like he's got a pretty good grasp on how to play it, and when you play with Tedford, that's just kind of how it goes, I think.
Yeah, I could see it.
Yeah, I can. Maybe Matt, is Bryce Young and Reich, is that going to be one of the duos to look out for?
Yeah,
hopefully. I think they'll be pretty good. I'm on both of them.
Yeah, I mean, there's no one. Everyone should be trying to copy the Eagles because they perfected modern football last year, and no one better to do that than Frank Reich, right? Like he was kind of there when it was written.
So, yeah. Well, this last question is from Danny on Twitter, and this one's just for you, Theo. How does one get into bird watching?
A good place to start is the Merlin Bird ID app. Even I use that as someone who's been doing it since I was a little kid and familiar with all the species, just top of mind. I find myself using the Merlin Bird ID app and going to the sound feature because it is scary accurate. Anything that is calling around you, it will come up with basically a list of what you're hearing. And it's never been wrong. Every single time a bird has popped up that it has heard, I've been able to find it. Okay, so that will basically tell you what you're looking for, and you won't miss anything because obviously it's very hard to be familiar with all their calls, and even I'm not familiar with all their calls. So sometimes, who knows, in the past times where a rare bird has been like chirping, and I haven't heard it or like registered it as rare in my head because it kind of sounds like all the other calls. But now with this app, I can kind of it's on my radar that it's around. And that can be the case with every bird. If you're unfamiliar with bird watching, is, every bird that's around, you'll be able to kind of have a knowledge of it if you use this app. And then you can seek them out kind of from there. And that makes it way easier. So if you're just beginning, or even if you're been doing it for a long time like me, I would highly recommend that app. And eBird, the eBird website is amazing and tells you basically where everything is. So,
any gear that you think you should have right away?
I've got a pair of Vortex binoculars, and I think that they're the best. They were a graduation gift, so they're I haven't really ever gone and checked how much they are because I own them. Right. They're probably more on the expensive side, but maybe the company makes a cheaper option. But I love my Vortex binoculars. But if you spend like a decent amount of money on any kind, like if you get the cheapest version, they'll probably suck. But if you get something just even kind of mid-level, it should be all right. And just go out and walk around and see what you can see.
See what you can see.
Because it's just Pokemon Go with real animals, really. And the appeal of it is that you're just kind of walking around. And
that is just what Pokemon is, isn't it? You just go around and you like claim animals.
Yeah, basically, it was the same shit. It was so funny when that was big in 2016. Is like when the animals are online, everybody wants to go do it. But when you can make them fight each other, but no one just wants to go look at birds, which is
people hate peace.
The same premise.
People hate peace and tranquility. This is what we've learned.
People like Bulbasaur, but they don't like the snow goose. What is? This is what's wrong with society today. Just kidding. I fuck with Pokemon.
Well, I think that's pretty much all we have for this episode. Let us know which division you want us to take on next. Maybe we'll have a guest. Who knows? But until then, thank you so much for tuning in. And as always, we will catch you all on the flippity flop.